all about it. That was real good. That was money, first of all. Let's do another.
Welcome, everyone. This is The Real Review 3000. I am Chris Knight, and this is the Gospel According to Chris on our Gospel According to Chris Blowout Week. All live streams all week long and spinning that wheel like crazy. And next to me is last night's winner of the spinning wheel of names, Stevie J from Stevie J Reviews. How are you, Stevie?
Yeah, I'm doing awesome. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think you put my name on this a little while ago, so I'm glad that my name is finally spun up on the wheel.
You, who was it a couple days ago? Oh shoot. Yeah, now I'm gonna kill myself. Oh yeah, 19K Fox was on Monday. I'm hoping we get some of these people that have been on for quite a while. I'm debating whether or not to stop putting people on the wheel for a while and just try to get through who's on there.
Yeah.
People have been on there forever, and it's like, okay, I keep adding people, and then the newer people get picked. It's like, oh my gosh.
Gotcha.
But I'm glad we finally got this opportunity. It's great that we're doing this now. And again, I try to have my guests pick out topics, and sometimes we go with real direct topics. Like the Mondays was, iconic cars from film and TV, or iconic vehicles. That's pretty narrowed down. And then we're going to have today's, which is a nice open conversation, which is about the current state of film.
Yes.
Now, when you suggested this, what's your feelings on this? Just broad feelings about it right now.
Well, broadly, I mean, I feel like movies today have lost not just the quality that they used to have, but they seem to just lack all of the components that go into a good film. And I feel like whether it's, a combination, but whether it's Hollywood or whether it's certain directors or studios, they start with a certain idea that's driven by mostly political agendas. And then they try and write a story around that rather than it being the other way around. So I guess overall for me, it's apart from a few films that we've had this year and in, let's say, the last 10 years, I feel like since, say, the 90s, early 2000s, we've really lost the quality of film overall.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think what I see more often than not is instead of picking an actor that fits the role or a role that works with the actor, they're picking an actor first and putting them in a role. It doesn't matter if they can play the role or not. I feel like, we've lost I mean, we got actors out there who you can't really say what their main thing is. Like, you can always say Harrison Ford was, Indiana Jones and Han Solo. But, as he went along, he did branch out. But when he first started, he was that he kind of had a vision of who he would play. Nicolas Cage, you have a vision for who he's going to play. Whether or not the character changes, it's him that is that character. That's the character, because when they made that character, they're like, wait a minute, I know who this is. This is this person. This is this person. Anymore these days, it's like, oh, well, we have this character. We're going to make her a woman, but she's going to be a black woman, and they're just going to go out and find what matches with what they think people are going to be like. Oh, yay, diversity, this and that. I'm not against diversity. I'm against just putting somebody in a part just because you're trying to be diversified.
Yeah, exactly.
Find the actor or actress that belongs in that part. And I think today's Hollywood, or, film in general, they don't do that. They're just forcing actors to play these parts. So then it comes across more like a reading of a part. Case in point, Brie Larson. I mean, I didn't mind Captain America, but the movie could have been so much better with somebody else in it.
Yeah. I mean, look, to be honest, and to your point exactly, Captain Marvel was a film that I was actually excited about. So at the end of Infinity War, when we saw that little beeper, just before that classic Samuel L. Jackson line, that mother.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty excited when we saw that little beeper, and I was like, Captain Marvel. don't know much about Captain Marvel because I'm not a comic book guy or anything like that. But I did a little bit of a Google on Captain Marvel. I was like, okay, sounds pretty interesting. I'm intrigued by this film. So when it came out, I was like, I'm going to go see it. I'm going to have an open mind. But unfortunately, leading up to that, we got all that rhetoric from Brie Larson about, movies not made for you and all of that kind of stuff. And to me, like, why market the film that way, particularly leading up to it? If you want to make those comments about the movie and about yourself, make it after the film's been released. Give it a chance because, I mean, the marketing, for example, that she did with all that rubbish that she was talking, automatically 50% of the audience go, do you know what? I'm not that interested anymore. So I sort of tried to sweep that aside and just go and see Captain Marvel, hoping that it was going to be a good film. Unfortunately, it wasn't. To me, I fell asleep just about in the movie, and it wasn't necessarily the feminist agenda that was in it, because I didn't really see that much in it that was feminist. There was a few lines, but nothing really. To me, it was more the story that really lacked. Mm-hmm. And this is the problem, and getting into the problem with movies overall these days. The characters are so poorly written. I mean, let me ask you a quick question. Mm-hmm. What's one of your favorite characters from a movie?
Joker, but I would have told you that before the new one came out.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
I'm a big Jack Nicholson.
Okay, Jack Nicholson.
Joker, and I think while maybe a little thin, I think the way he portrayed it was very well done.
Okay, well that's good. I can work with that. So Joker, let's go with the Jack Nicholson version from Batman. So the way that the character was written, and being a villain, obviously, it's a little bit different to a protagonist, but he was written very well. He had a starting point, he had a middle point, and he had an end point in that film. And it was all written logically. His character was written logically. And the decisions that he made all made sense within that plot and within his character arc. So what we see these days is, and let's use Captain Marvel because we were just talking about that. We see the characters start from the beginning with every power that they need, every perfect character trait that they need, and nothing changes throughout the film. Mm-hmm. And so as an audience, what we get is no journey or progression whatsoever. And let's be honest, when we're an audience member, we want to see a journey. We want to see the character go through something so that we can relate. And then in the end, when they're triumphant, which they always are, then we feel a sense of satisfaction.
Yeah, no, and with Captain Marvel, the weird thing about that is not only did she have her powers from the get-go, they were holding her powers back.
Yeah, that's right.
Really, that's a different way of doing it. And it's like, okay, so what's the point? You're sitting there the whole movie going like, well, she can do it.
Yeah.
It just, yeah,
exactly.
I totally agree with that. I mean, and with the whole Star Wars and all that with Rey and stuff, I don't disagree with people. Whether or not I like the movies or not, it doesn't mean I disagree with that.
Yeah.
They're not shot and they're not told like a Star Wars film. They look the part. They look kind of like, oh, look, Star Wars. I see lightsabers. I see good and evil. I see all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So what I've always said is Disney literally jumped on this bandwagon of thinking that Star Wars is nothing but for kids.
Yeah.
What they didn't pay attention to is and the people like SJWs and other people who came out and said, well, these movies aren't for you. Absolutely they are, because I watched all the first 6 of the Skywalker saga. And if they call this the Skywalker saga, the ending of it, then it was made for me. Yeah. And that means they need to follow these set of rules. And they disregarded them. They were in the Millennium Falcon. They ate the sandwich that had all the rules in it, and then they spit it out back into the wrapper, wrapped it up, and says, "Oh, we don't like these," and threw it out the window and said, "Those don't count.
Yeah,
that doesn't matter anymore. We don't care about that. We're going to make our own flashy, no substance movie like we always do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's a big problem with the Star Wars. I mean, we know everything that's going on right now, and I'm sure if I check my notifications, there'll be about 55,000 videos. But
I don't know anything about it yet. I have stayed away from every
all right,
spoiler except for the like your trailers and stuff. But
sure. Well, I'm not gonna spoil anything, and so, but let's just talk about the first 8 movies, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So, and how that relates to film overall today.
Yeah.
And Disney have one of the biggest problems with this. So for me, what they're often doing is they're trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to filmmaking and storytelling, right? So throughout the history of film, let's say 100 years, but we can shorten it to say 50 years as well. But throughout that history, there's been a very, very clear method of writing characters and writing stories that is successful, that works, that doesn't really need to be changed. The way that Disney are looking at this, though, is what can we do differently? We have to do something different. We have to be new and creative, and we have to cater to all of these different audiences, which is normally tending to be the minority. But anyway, and that is the problem I see with Hollywood. One of the biggest problems I see with Hollywood now is there's no problem with following the standard story beats of a character. The hero's journey, for example. But for some reason, they want to do it differently. Now, there's no need for that. All they need to do is follow that core example, but write something creative around that. And that's where they're going wrong. They're starting with the stuff, let's say, if the hero's journey is the tree trunk in the middle, and the rest of the story is the branches. Well, what they're doing is starting with all the branches and then trying to make it fit with the trunk. Doesn't work.
No.
And so what we find is that, you've got all these, I'm going to stick with my tree analogy for a minute. You've got all these branches at the top and nothing from the bottom of the trunk to the top. No trees, nothing. There's just no clear storytelling that makes any sense. And like I said before, with the characters that they write, they don't give us any way to relate to them and any way to feel any empathy for them. Because you look at Captain Marvel, you look at Rey, you look at all of these characters who are just inherently perfect from the beginning. And all that makes you want to do is sit there and go, okay.
Yeah.
They're perfect. I'm not feeling anything for this character. And in going back to episode 5 and 6 of Star Wars, it's completely different. Luke is not perfect. In fact, they point out more of his flaws than anything.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in episode 5.
Oh.
But then we go to episode 6, and this is where the story is written well, because we go to episode 6, and, he's learned some things. He's still not perfect, but his main goal is to convert Darth Vader back to the dark side. And people, who are big fans of The Last Jedi, for example, and Disney's Star Wars, often say that Luke was always had that evil in him. He was always that kind of character, but really he wasn't. And Return of the Jedi showed that absolutely perfectly, because he was right there, right in that moment where he was on the verge, and he could have killed Darth Vader. He could have done it. He could have gone to the dark side completely. But right in that moment where he threw the lightsaber down, that was the solidifying of his character as a good person and sticking to the light side.
Let me ask you this about that, because I understand that completely, and I agree that that's the moment where he made the choice. But is there nothing that says that he could feel like a tinge of thinking, I can save countless people a problem? And I think this is my theory, and this is, again, me working it out, because I have nothing to go on, because they gave us nothing of 30 years of Luke.
Yeah.
To prove otherwise. So it's what you say can't be wrong. What I say can't be wrong, because we don't really have an answer.
No, exactly.
But my thought always on the part where he's trying to kill Kylo is he goes to do it because he sees what he's going to do. He knows what he's going to do. And right in that moment, he's about ready to do it. He stops himself because, one, he is inherently good. Two, he probably has gone back to when he asked, so you can see the future. He asked, I think it was Yoda, he asked, so you can see the future. And he basically said, well, yes and no. Because you'll see a future, but you don't know which future. You don't know for sure.
Yep.
So he then probably in that quick second maybe said, wait a minute, I don't know for sure what I'm seeing is real. And that's where I've always stood, is I'm not necessarily thinking that he's inherently evil doing this. I think he's built up in his mind that it's my job to stop what I have created. But he stops himself, which is the good. And it's the same good as when he stops himself from killing his father. But I mean, I digress because at the same side of it, I can see your side easily because, he did it right there. Why going to keep repeating himself, doing the same problem here and there? Is it every time he comes across an inherently bad, a bad Force person, you don't inherently want to kill anybody. That's what makes you do it. When you're on the light side of the Force, you don't. That's not your purpose.
Well, I look. I can understand that point of view for sure, and I guess if you were to look at The Last Jedi in itself, it makes sense. Even let's just say the sequel trilogy of those first two movies on their own, that would probably make a bit more sense to me. But the key for me at why that doesn't work for me is probably two reasons. One is that fear. Okay, so Luke talks about fear, and in The Last Jedi, he says he saw the future and was afraid, basically, that Kylo Ren was going to do X, Y, Z. The problem I have with that is that in Return of the Jedi, there was no more fearful moment for him than facing Darth Vader and the Emperor together, and he made himself defenseless by throwing down his lightsaber. So there's nothing more fearful for his character than right then. And so if he can face up to that fear in that moment, then there's absolutely nothing stopping him facing up to the fear in a similar way with Kylo Ren and saying, hey, wake up, Kylo. I want to have a chat to you about what you're planning in the future.
Let's talk about where I see you going. I don't disagree with that at all. Again, I think Disney, and you want to talk about Disney messing up everything, they should have started with the 30 years of Luke Skywalker. 30 years and one movie, because we don't even have them in that. Again, it's not my job as a fan to make it fit, but that's what I've done. I've made it fit, but it doesn't feel. I mean, I'm like so many other people. I walked out of The Last Jedi, and I was kind of like, cool movie, but and I still feel that way. I mean, I tell people I like the movie, but that doesn't mean that it's a great movie. It's not shot like a Star Wars film. There's tons of comedy that's not needed. There's I equate it to to watching a space version of the O.J. Simpson chase, basically. That's really what it is.
Yeah. Well, look, and not wanting to turn this whole thing into just Star Wars, but for me, The Last Jedi was such, storytelling wise, it was such an incoherent mess. And there was so many pointless plots that the whole thing to me just felt like I walked out and I was like, what just happened? Like I just woke up from a car accident, a whole lot of things just went by and I don't know what and I'm not saying I didn't get it, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it didn't make sense, because if you look at the original trilogy and the trio, basically, that it was about, and them working together. And The Force Awakens definitely has its flaws, but I think they started the trilogy well with The Force Awakens. And at the end of that, I was actually quite happy to see Luke, and I thought, Rey and Luke together, awesome. We're going to get to see something fantastic.
I felt like the next Strike Back was about to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. And But with the Last Jedi, what happened there with Sir Roundhead was he split up all of the characters, gave them all an individual plot to chase down, a MacGuffin. He made Snoke irrelevant. Kylo Ren's character progression was halted.
Mm-hmm.
Rey's character progression was halted.
Mm-hmm.
And Finn was pointless.
Yep.
Rose Tico was what she was.
Mm-hmm.
And the main plot itself really didn't progress at all.
No.
Not at all. So to me, that was what was the most disappointing thing. Because although I might say, like, I've got issues with Star Wars, the Disney trilogy and all that, and I do, but I was still looking at it as, a Star Wars fan wanting it to be good. I didn't want any of it to suck. Mm-hmm. It's just unfortunate that it did, and I really wasn't happy with it. And then the last thing for me that I'll say on the Star Wars is looking at the Rise of Skywalker. None of it, like, as soon as The Last Jedi was finished, I was like, well, how are they going to fix this in one film? To me, it's impossible because of all of those things I just mentioned, all those offshoot plots, no character progression. There's just nothing.
You've lost your big baddie. You've lost your big baddie, the new emperor, and then you've replaced him with the old emperor for no reason whatsoever. And we've already been told by Trevorrow. Thank you, Colin Trevorrow. We've already been told by him that was not originally the case, even though JJ and Kathleen said, oh, yeah, we always planned on bringing him back. No, you didn't. Let's not lie. Okay, we're going to get off of that because you're absolutely right. We don't need to be talking just about that. Really, let's talk about a bright spot. And I just talked to you about this briefly about the Joker. Mm-hmm. The Joker is really... It's interesting how and again, I just got off a stream about talking about the DCEU and how I'm unhappy with the fact that they're holding on to the past but not acknowledging that they're either not moving forward with that past or they are, because they're still keeping pretty much three of those characters: Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. Pretty sure that Cavill's coming back because he's made no bones about it that he wants to come back as Superman.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, we're not going to get Affleck. So my problem is you're still moving forward with one timeline, but you got all these other movies going on, but you're not actually saying where you're going.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the movies. I love what the DCEU is doing right now.
Yeah.
But with Joker, they were very poignant. And this is why I get mad at DCEU for not being more poignant on more movies. Because with Joker, when they were getting ready to release it, when they were working on it, they allowed Phillips to say, this is not in the world of what you know as Batman. This is not that universe. This is an Elseworld story. This is separate from all of that. And by doing that, when you walked into the theater and you sat down, all expectations are gone.
Yeah. Yep.
You got to watch the movie.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to spoil anything by saying that.
No, exactly.
Just tell people what you think you're going to walk into. It's not that.
Yep. Exactly.
Open your mind and watch our movie.
Yeah, and that's what I loved, and that's what a lot of people loved about Joker, was that it was refreshing. It was something different. And talking about the DCEU, it's been a big frustration of mine watching that, because they have some of the best characters in history.
Exactly.
Absolute best characters in history. Yeah. And they've been failing. And part of the reason for that, and I will link this to Joker, because we got BVS, which in my opinion was bad, and then we got Justice League, which was terrible. Well, and Justice League was part of the reason why Joker got approved. So Warner Brothers was saying, I'm not sure if we really like this, kind of separate Joker film. It might not hit our audience, that kind of thing. And then Justice League was a critical failure. Mm-hmm. And they all of a sudden went, hey, Todd, where's that script you got? Do you want to show it to us again? Mm-hmm. And so from there, he got the green light. and we, got what we got in the end. And being able to see, when I first saw the trailer come out for it, I was like, okay, I'm really interested in this. It looks completely different. It's got Joaquin Phoenix in it. I just really liked the feel of it.
The first trailer I saw, which I think was the teaser trailer, I just kind of was like, I was more just like, I don't see where this is going. The second trailer, the full trailer, when I saw that, I was like, ooh. It really started making me then. That when it was a full trailer, I was like, okay, I like this. I like this a lot.
Yeah.
And I wasn't disappointed at all.
No.
I mean,
absolutely. Well, I suppose, looking at film overall and where we are today, the way I see it is if I look at the 90s and into the early 2000s, I imagine it as like a big grass field, right? And back in the 90s, early 2000s, the grass was green, the lush, which was all the good movies. And then we had some spots here or there, which were the bad movies, some real dry spots. Now I see that in reverse. I see a big open field full of dry, dead grass with a few green patches in it, which to me is stuff like Joker, John Wick, The Irishman, even, looking a little bit older, Warrior, The Last Samurai. These kind of films are the green patches that I'm talking about. And we haven't seen, I just really want to see us get back to filling that field more with green because the opportunity is there. There's nothing stopping them. They just need to forget politics, the external politics, and just focus on creating really interesting stories and then translating it. Because if you look at something like, let's take Warrior, for example. And I like to use this film as an example because at face value, it looks like just a very basic fight movie that's about some dudes who get, who fight and very generic. But, the way that it's written and the way that the characters are written makes it such an interesting and deep story that you wouldn't even think existed. So, we've got Nick Nolte in there, Tom Hardy, Joel Edgerton, which are all fantastic actors, but it's the way that they're portrayed and the way that they do those roles that really makes it relatable. And, I watched it again. It's an old movie, oldish. It's 2011.
Yeah.
But I watched it again, a few weeks ago. And at the end of it, I was still moved. I was still moved at the end of that film. And to me, that's a combination of the acting, the story, the script, which was really good as well in that, and also the music, which often gets forgotten about. The music is so important. We saw it in Joker. Fantastic score in that film. Oh. And, with Warrior, the score wasn't necessarily amazing from a musical standpoint, but the way that they applied it to the film and the way that they upped and down the volume to match the feeling of the scene was unbelievable. And it just made it so much more impactful.
Yeah. No, I mean, sound, people underestimate, and I think we see this a lot going back to Disney and a lot of other companies out there. They underestimate the inner workings of your hierarchy of movie makers. When you talk about the people who do the sound, the people who do the soundtrack, the people who do the score, the script writers, it starts from the bottom, and then the guy at the top needs to then say, okay, good script, get this. Now I'm gonna get my casting director to go out and find the right actor for the part. I don't care what color skin they have. Yeah. I don't care what religion, nationality, or anything. Go find me the best actor or actress for this part. Yeah. That's where Hollywood in general has a big disconnect right now, is they don't let the parts that should dictate what happens. They don't allow those parts to actually dictate it. It is the person up at the top saying, well, right now we're getting a lot of people telling us they want to see more black female actors, or they wanted to see more Asian female actors. So we need to make sure we get an Asian female in this who might be half black. That would help us too. Literally, and again,
Yeah, I know.
I'm not against diversity. I'm not. I want diversity because it needs to be there. And I did last week. I did a bunch of stuff about Bond. I did a whole week about Bond, and at the end, I picked out 4 people: Aiden Turner, Idris Elba, Henry Cavill, and Tom Hiddleston. Those are the 4 I picked out to talk about who I wanted to be Bond. Those are 4 names I would not be against. But when I came down to it, what I've seen on screen of their past works and stuff, I said Idris Elba. Not because of his color. That plays into it, fine. You know, whatever. If you like that, fine. But I did it because what I've seen of him in over the past few years, he fits the part really well, I think. Now, you know, you can disagree or you agree, it doesn't matter. But I looked at it for what I think the Bond character should be, not just who Bond is as a character. I think Craig is one of the best ones because if you've ever read any of the books, he's a very dark, brooding, unhappy character. Women are there because that's the only way he gets pleasure. The alcohol is there is to wash away his thoughts of his wasted life as he normally thinks. And he's in the business of spy work because he gets to kill people and it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not because it's his job. It's because it's where he can go to release his problems on other things and other people.
That is him. That is Bond.
And Craig does a really good job of that, I think. Again, but and that's a very shallow film series to talk about because it's a very. I'm talking about. Let's look at who should be acting in these parts.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right though. Idris Elba, particularly out of the ones you mentioned, I think Idris Elba is a great choice because of the way he carries himself. Not because of the color of his skin or the whatever, but the way he carries himself on screen. He could pull off that kind of decadent character that James Bond is. And you know, seeing this latest Bond trailer, and you know, I just think that certain things should be left alone, and the character of Bond should be left alone. He should always be that character. Well, he's always been someone who you know, men wanted to be and women wanted to be with. Yes, and now it seems to be changing to it's a character that women want to be and men want to sit in the corner and say how good it is.
Well, with that said, you know, the rumor I originally heard way back when that
oh, is it just me? Can you guys hear me? Am I still here? Or is Chris gone?
Oh, sorry. So one of those things that happens, I'll have to talk to StreamYard about that. It happened a couple times recently. But
that's right.
What I was going to say is I read an article with Barbara Broccoli recently where she point blank said, no, there will never be a female that plays Bond. Bond is not a female. Bond is a male. And that's how it is. And I have told everybody, if Barbara Broccoli allows a female to play Bond or 007, now I don't know what number she's going to get in this movie. All it lists her as is a 00 agent, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But I was glad to hear that because her father built this series. Her father absolutely in this series. And for her to stand up and say that in an article is great.
Yeah, that's great. We need more of that sort of stuff. Absolutely. So, like you, I don't have a problem with the 00 thing. If she wants to, if they want to make her a 00 agent, the only issue I see, and look, this is a comment without seeing the film, obviously, but looking at the trailer, the only other issue I have with this stuff is how they then kind of pass the torch. If they're looking to have a 00 agent and all that kind of stuff, what it looks like in the trailer is that she's going to be portrayed as what we talked about before, she's perfect from the beginning to the end, and she's awesome and all that kind of stuff. And they're going to portray Bond as the old decrepit guy who's only barely useful anymore. And I have a real issue with that. You can transition from having him as the main character to her as the main character in a respectful way. There's no need to downgrade him just to make her look better. They could be a team and work together and have some friendly banter back and forth, which would make it funny. And then we'd be satisfied at the end. Yep, she's going to be a 00 agent and the one we focus on.
I think some of the things I've read recently lead me to believe that it might be more of that than we think. And
okay.
I don't know that for sure. Don't take my word for that. But what I'm reading kind of sounds like that, because what I have read is that more than anything, if it happens, she will get a spinoff. Yeah, and I think what will happen is if they give her a spinoff, they're going to see exactly why you don't have a female Bond. It's going to tank. I'm okay with her being a part in the going forward in these series. I mean, one of the best moves, and I think one of the things people forget, and we will get off this Bond thing really quick too, so we don't stay on one topic or the other. One of the best moves they ever made, and when it first happened, people were like, I don't know about that, was when they brought Judi Dench in. But
yes.
You know what? As time went on, you saw why. She was she was strong as Bond. She could tell him off, but she still knew she needed him.
Yeah.
She knew this is the best chance I have to get my job done.
Yeah, exactly. And she was
him, but he needs me as much as I need him.
Yeah, it portrayed, and she portrayed that relationship perfectly, because she was the boss, and
exactly
that's it. And that's how it was portrayed. Yeah, he was Bond, and he had his his smug comments and all that kind of stuff. But that's that's him, and that's how the relationship worked. But you're right, Judi Dench was strong, and she portrayed it really well because she's a great actress.
She was the best choice for that role.
Oh, absolutely.
And then with Skyfall, the way she handles it, she's like, well, he's like, well, I'll go back to my flat and I'll see you in the morning. He says, oh, we sold your flat. I should just find a hotel room. And he's like, you sold my flat? Yeah. You're not staying here.
Yeah.
The way she handled him was like, you don't have your charms on me. I love you. I'm the boss. But it worked. It was so beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. It was awesome. And it wasn't just that, like her interaction with Bond. It was her interaction with the other admirals and stuff. So I'm looking back at, say, GoldenEye and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And The World Is Not Enough, what's the other one? Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah.
She was really strong against all those other male characters, the admirals and all that. I can't remember the exact line, but basically she was like, you don't have the balls to do this or whatever it was, and it was perfect. And I guess sort of doing a mini segue back into our overall topic.
Yeah.
One of the massive issues I've got right now is these knuckleheads coming out and saying, like Elizabeth Banks, Brie Larson, take your pick, Kathleen Kennedy, whoever it is, saying, oh, we, finally we've got strong female characters and we've never seen this before. Everyone needs to get on board, otherwise you're a sexist.
Exactly.
And it's like, you could not be saying anything more ridiculous. Have you not seen a film ever? Like I don't have enough hands and feet to count on fingers and toes the amount of strong female characters that have not only been likable but critically successful as well. So, this is just it's enraging, really is, because, and we don't even have to look too far in the past. You could go all the way back to Star Wars. You could go back to Aliens with Ripley. These characters have existed for such a long time, and I think what they're missing here is what makes a strong female character, right, and a strong character overall.
You start them off with all the powers they need. Then there's no question they're strong.
Exactly. Don't worry about having any depth to their character. Don't worry about having anything interesting about them. Don't worry about any vulnerabilities. And let's talk DC for a minute. You've got the most. Let's talk powers. You've got the most powerful character in the world, in any universe, in Superman.
Mm-hmm.
He's impervious. The Man of Steel, completely invulnerable, but they still wrote the character with vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
So both physical, being kryptonite, and emotional, being his connection to humanity and not wanting to kill people. And he wants to protect people.
Yep.
2 vulnerabilities for that character that add 90% of his depth. You could have Superman with all his powers and completely impervious and not have any vulnerabilities. And you know what? Nobody would care. Nobody would be interested in that character. It'd be cool for a few minutes. Let's say it could be cool for one film, watching him just destroy stuff with his powers. But then after that, it's like, well, why do we care? How can we relate to this character? We can't. We can't at all. And it's the same with what we're seeing now on the opposite end of it, with these characters who are impervious from the beginning. There's nothing there.
I like, and Leia's not. Leia's a strong female character. She's perfect for going back and looking at strong female characters from the past. Leia's perfect for it. She has some vulnerabilities, but not a ton. But her character doesn't need a ton in that because she's not the main idea of that film. She has her parts and she's important to it, but her character, her person is very strong in that. She looks at Vader right in the first movie and talks back to him. Basically, she talks back to Tarkin.
Yeah, exactly.
I should have known it was you by your foul stench or whatever. She doesn't care.
No, exactly.
She's going to tell you what she thinks. That's a strong female character. But you brought up one of the best ones I think that you can go back at, and that's Ripley. In the first film, she's scared to death during the first parts of it when things are going on. She doesn't understand what's happening, what's going on, and then she's the one that realizes I have to do this. And everything she does is out of fear. That starts to become stronger because even though she's scared, that's what drives her to do what she does in that movie.
Yep.
It's her Achilles heel that makes her become that hero, that great character she is. And Alien and Aliens is probably some of the best films because in Aliens, they could have kept up with this. She's a badass bitch who can do this. But no, you find out she's lost her daughter. Her daughter's dead now because she's been asleep this whole time. They tear her character back down. Now she's just this feeble she's mad. She's sad. She lost her daughter. And then the kid comes into that movie and she holds that kid because this is her connection. This makes her feel more complete. But then this all starts happening again. She's scared again, but now she's scared because she doesn't want to lose what she's found and this girl and stuff. You can't do better than that.
Exactly. And I
just made her this badass bitch for the whole second movie. No problems because we would have believed it. We would have, but she tore her down. You bring it back. The company talks crap to her, blames her for what happens. They throw everything at her. Tell her you're done. You're not going to do this. We don't believe you. You lost your daughter. Blah blah blah. You're done. And she comes back.
Absolutely. And great point that you made there that I want to just expand on. So really good point is that in that second film, like you said, she could have gone on and they could have made her tough as anything. But the other thing that they kept up with in that was that she was afraid. She was still afraid of the aliens. And all she wanted to do from the beginning was get out of there. She didn't want to be a part of it.
No, she
was reluctant. She didn't want to go in the first place. But they made her do it. So that was a really key thing as well, that from her very beginning in Alien all the way through to the end of Aliens, she was always afraid. And in stark contrast to that, if we look at Captain Marvel in Avengers Endgame, so Ripley's comment was, I don't want to go. Let's get the hell out of here. We shouldn't be doing this. Captain Marvel's comment was, let's go get Thanos. You've got me now. I'm here. That's it. It's over. I'm here. Because I'm so tough. And all you do is in one case with Ripley, you completely endear and engage the audience to that character. And in Captain Marvel, you completely disengage the audience and make nobody care about her. Because she doesn't come across, Captain Marvel doesn't come across as tough and badass and all that. She comes off as arrogant and smug. Particularly in that one where you've had all of that character progression for the other Avengers. And then she's just like, I'm here. It's done. I'm here. Now, I know Avengers Endgame went on and there was more to it than that. But that's just an example of those two characters, how they're diametrically opposed in how they were written and how audiences relate. I just, it's got me baffled. And I've written up a script for a video, which will be out in a few days' time, talking about this exact same thing. And the character that I focus on in that is actually Samantha Kane, or Charlie, from A Long Kiss Goodnight. And I think, that may not be the best film. I really enjoyed it, but that may not be the best film in history. But all I really do in the video is talk about the character and how well it was written and how it was relatable, because she's not a split personality, but she has two characters in the film. And the first one's vulnerability is basically just the character, who she is herself. There's no specific thing that's her vulnerability. She's just a woman. She's a homemaker. She's, on the PTA, and that's just her vulnerability. So she doesn't have any physical defense against anything. She's not anyone special. But then as the film progresses, we see her change into Charlie. And I don't want to go through my whole video here, but she changes into Charlie, who's a super highly trained assassin. And the film really does it well, where it takes both characters, gives them a beginning, gives them a middle, and then in the end combines the two to essentially give us not the perfect character, but a very relatable and engaging character.
No, I think, we can talk about another part of filmmaking here that, again, I think you'll agree with me, is sorely lacking, and that's script writing. Who you hire for script writing. Again, that builds that character. If you can't just give characters, like you said, everything at the beginning, because then why are we watching them? What are we working for? I mean, I spent more of Captain Marvel waiting for Samuel L. Jackson's character to become badass, and yet the whole time he's just kind of sitting there, just like, yeah. And that's what I was waiting for, is for Nick Fury to show up. But that didn't happen. So the fact that the character progression for Captain Marvel even bothered the character progression for a character we already know where he ends up, that was like, who writes these scripts nowadays? It's like, 10 years ago or so, let's go actually 3 years ago, Ghostbusters 2016, where a lot of now, I tell people, I don't necessarily mind Ghostbusters 2016. It has its moments for me at times, but I watched a really good video where they broke down one scene from both that and the original Ghostbusters, and it was
I've seen that.
Yeah, it was bringing out exactly what the differences were about the packs, the ecto packs. Yeah. They showed the 30-second clip in Ghostbusters 84 that explained everything you need to know about it, and the little bit of humor there was absolutely enough to break the tension, be funny, but you still know this is a serious situation. 2016, it was like a 5-minute scene, and all it was slapstick. And when I talked to Sean at Sean Stackhouse Reacts, the only thing he liked about that scene, and I like about that scene, truthfully, is the fact we finally got to see them build the ectopack, because we know the original Ghostbusters built their own. We just never saw it, which is fine, because we didn't need to see it. And so when you look at the two, you're like, 30 seconds of a movie or 5 minutes. That was the problem with 2016. It was slapstick, it was crude humor, and it misused its opportunities. Why?
Absolutely.
It didn't have direction, didn't have the writers. It was a bunch of people. First off, it was a bunch of people that had a lot of Saturday Night Live skit experience, and it kind of came across like that, little skits. And
that scene that you talked about, that video, I've seen that as well. I think it was from The Critical Drinker. I think he's the one who did that, the Scottish guy. Awesome channel, by the way. Very funny. But that scene, as you just sort of alluded to, that scene and script writing display perfectly for me what's wrong today. Because in that 84 scene, all of that you talked about that took 30 seconds was contained in one elevator it was a single take from memory, and it had a few very poignant lines from the characters, and some telling looks back and forth between the characters, and we knew everything we needed to know for that scene to progress and to allude to what was about to happen. And then, like you said, for the Ghostbusters 2016, and look, that one scene's just an example, but that spreads across the entire movie.
Yeah.
And something I see today, and I talked about this, I think, in my Joker review, and I do talk about it a bit, is minimal scripts. We don't need spewing of dialogue and exposition to explain to us what's going on. Use the camera, use the actors, get them to hold the screen with their acting ability and translate what their emotion is, what their expression is, just through acting. Don't tell us in spewed out dialogue that that's what's happening. Now, of course, I'm not saying let's forget scripts, let's forget dialogue, because it's important. Yeah. But what we don't need, or what we shouldn't need, is emotions told to us via dialogue.
Exactly.
Sure, there's things we need to see, and we need to be told with the characters and the interactions and that kind of stuff. We don't need to be told through verbal diarrhea what a character is feeling. That should be expressed through their acting and the camera work and music, all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. No, you see, and that's the thing. Ghostbusters in '84, if I remember right, there was a lot of ad-libbing going on there, and there's certain people that work and live off of ad-libbing, which is perfect. But you do have to give them the direction. So you can write a scene and say, okay, this is what you guys are going to be talking about, and this is kind of what we thought. This is your dialogue, but if you guys feel like you can take it off somewhere else but give us the same scene, just do your own talking. That's sometimes the most natural of natural things. It becomes across when you watch it on screen. You're like, wow, that's great. And then you go back and you read after the fact. You're like, whoa, that whole scene, that was ad-lib. Perfect example. Oh God, and now I forget De Niro. The hey, I'm walking here.
Yeah, these shoes.
People might not know this. That was done in New York City, live traffic, everything. The only thing that was set up was the two actors and the camera taking the picture of it. And and the taxi almost ran De Niro over, and that was completely ad-lib. But when you watch it, does it feel like that was not a part of that scene? No, it because it was natural. It was there. It was then. It was the moment. And yeah, you lose a lot. I don't know how much Todd Phillips actually, or the script writer actually wrote for Joaquin Phoenix, but the way he does it, I have this feeling that he had a lot of leeway to do it his way. Yeah. And while we're not talking about the same Joker as the other Jokers that have been portrayed in the past, it is still the same psychopathic workings of a character. And the way he portrays it is probably the best it's ever been done.
I agree. And look, Todd Phillips, I've heard some criticism from people say that the parts of the script were ad-libbed, or some scenes were ad-libbed, or scenes were rewritten on set. I don't see how that's a negative at all. And this is one of the things that I think made Joker so good, was that Todd Phillips, first of all, had a real passion for what he was doing and what he was creating. And he saw issues, or if he saw an issue with the script, he was happy to change it. Why would you stick to a script that's not working and just let it not work rather than changing it and making it a good? And, on the ad-libbing side of things, Joaquin Phoenix certainly did some ad-libbing, but one of the things that I really found interesting about this was that bathroom scene. So after he's just, spoiler alert if nobody's seen it, but hopefully everyone's seen it by now or heard about it. After that subway scene where he shoots those guys, he was meant to, as far as the storyboards went, he was meant to walk into the bathroom afterwards, put the gun into the trash or whatever, and then essentially just leave, just walk out. But this ties into something else that I think is amazing, that most films have a score written after filming's completed. This score was written prior to filming commencing, which to me is amazing. So Hilda, I'm not going to say her last name because I can't pronounce it, wrote the score for this purely based on the script. So the advantage that gave them was, and it ties into this bathroom scene, was that Todd Phillips wasn't quite happy with how the bathroom scene was looking. Didn't think there was enough in it. So what he did was he had the score played in the background, and as the score was playing, Joaquin Phoenix ad-libbed as he walked into that bathroom and did that dance that we saw, and that was all ad-libbed because and it worked because the score was playing in the background, so it added that little bit of emotion for Phoenix while he was doing the scene. And look what we got! It was one of the most iconic scenes in the movie. I mean, amongst many others, but and we finish on that final shot of him with his arms spread open, kind of embracing himself as who he was and becoming as the Joker. So I think that sort of stuff is brilliant, and it goes back to direction like you were talking about before, and the passion that Todd Phillips had for the film. And the other scene where I believe the score was playing in the background was where at the beginning we see Arthur with that putting that big smile on his face and the tear coming down his face. So, these are all very, very simple scenes when you think about it or when you look at it. But it's about how it's directed, how it's acted, and how it gets from the set to us as an audience. And I think Joker did that across the board very, very well.
Yeah, because let's be honest, no movie is perfect.
No.
But the idea is as long as everything handshakes really well together, you don't notice where it didn't go right. It works. Something works about it. Going back to Star Wars real quick, the original Star Wars, New Hope, whatever you want to call it. I still call it just Star Wars. But there's another video out there, really good video called Saved in the Edit. Star Wars Saved in the Edit. Maybe people don't realize, but if Jaws hadn't happened and hadn't become the movie it was, we would have never gotten Star Wars. Because Steven Spielberg got this hit like out of nowhere that actually in and of itself, if you know anything about what happened on Jaws, is a sheer miracle that movie even made it into the theaters. And then it's a sheer miracle that it became what it did become. And it's a sheer miracle that by all of that happening, he went to a guy and said, Alan Ladd Jr., I think is who he went to. And he said, hey, this guy's been shopping the script around. Can you help him out? And that's when 20th Century Fox became interested in Star Wars. And the first screening with friends and studio execs and the people who were on the people who were on the cast, or not the cast, but the crew, the higher up people, when they first sat down and watched it, and Steven Spielberg was one of the first to see the original cut of it. When they came out of that, Steven Spielberg pulled them aside and said, I hope that isn't what you're showing. That's not what you're going to make. That's not your movie. I hope that's not your movie. Immediately after that, then George Lucas's wife at the time goes in and locks herself in with the editor and herself in this room, and they re-edited the whole movie, I think in like 48 some odd hours because it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And if you go watch, and I'll look it up really quick and put it down in the chat like I did the comparison video here. If you go watch Saved in the Edit, you will realize that if you had gotten that Star Wars, you would never have watched it.
Yeah. And there wouldn't have been another 7-8 movies.
Exactly. And so when you think of Hollywood and the dumb luck that happens, it's not because it's just dumb luck. It's because when the critical moments came up in Jaws and the things went wrong, Steven Spielberg had enough knowledge to say, okay, how are we going to fix this? My shark isn't working. How are we going to make this look menacing? We're out in the ocean. I mean, I've read about there'd be hours that they'd have to reset because they'd be 5 minutes into a shot and then a sailboat would come in the horizon and they'd have to get the boat back where it needed to be. They'd have to reset everybody up and it'd take hours, and they reshot and reshot. And they were way in debt. But if it wasn't for a cool-headed director and people underneath him who were prop masters and things like that. The barrel scene, which when they couldn't use the shark, they used the barrels to signify the danger in the scene.
Yes. Yeah.
All that is barrels. There's nothing scary about barrels, but you've seen the shark when it's important. And again, that goes back to editing, because they took what they could that worked and they edited it in the right places to make it work. That is what Hollywood has lost, is the ability for the right hand to talk to the left hand and the left hand to talk to the right hand. This person to talk to that person and say, I'm a director. I know how to get the people to see what I want out of it. But you're the editor. You've got to give me connectivity between my scenes, because I can't do that. Because if I look at it, when I went to make my business cards for my business, I told the person the first time I ever made them, when I went into an Office Max here, I told them, they're like, well, what do you want? I said, I don't know. I'll be back in 30 minutes. This is my information. Do it for me. And they're like, what? And I said, if I sit here and try to figure this out, I will be here for hours, hours and hours. And even after I'm done picking out what I want, I will question whether or not I am right. That's a director for you. They can give you all that stuff. If you give them the decisions, they're going to be sitting there going, well, maybe I should do it this way. Maybe I should do it that way. And then they start hearing, oh, well, we need more, get the upper people up here that have all the money, that they're afraid now that if they don't do it the way they want it. You have to believe in who is a part of your group. And you don't get that very often anymore. And Joker seems to be that magic bullet.
Absolutely.
I would have said the same thing originally about Matrix, and then they went and made the second two, and it's like halfway through the second one, I literally said out loud, and I was shushed by a whole theater full of people. I said, they're not doing what I think they're doing, are they? And everybody's like, shut up. And my now ex-wife leans over to me and says, what do you think they're doing? I said, they're making him Jesus Christ. I'm like, what the hell? They were going, I'm like, I saw they were writing themselves into this corner long before they obviously did. And it's
like you said, though, with Joker, and I'm going to get back to your point too on Jaws and Star Wars too, but with Joker, and I mentioned it before, Todd Phillips had a real passion. So there's two things. He was competent and he was passionate about what he was doing. So Spielberg, same. George Lucas, same. Other directors as well. Scorsese, for example, same. And so, yes, he tied all those things in together perfectly. And the other person I want to mention with that is Larry Sher, the cinematographer from Joker. Exactly. And, most people that you talk to will comment on that straight away to say that the cinematography was great. But there's a short video where Larry Sher talks about the coloring and the cinematography for Joker. And a very similar thing to what you just said. He... there was a certain shot where Arthur's walking down the street in New York, Gotham, and it's, there's a particular lighting. And so they call it apparently the golden 15 minutes or whatever during the day, where the lighting is like the sun's going down and the lighting is just perfect naturally. And so Phillips said Larry Sher said to Todd Phillips, we need to shoot in this exact time, in this exact 15-minute window. And so they did. They set everything up. And so, all of that effort, you can imagine getting all the crew there, the set, the actors, everything all there and lined up for a 15 minutes window where they can get one perfect take. And so, from a creative standpoint, Larry Sher said, no, this is how we get the best shot. From a directing standpoint, Todd Phillips said, yes, let's do it then. So they did it. And they it doesn't seem big, but all of those little things throughout the movie while they're creating it make it something brilliant. And with Jaws, leading into Star Wars, that then leads into Alien. Because Alien was never going to be made either. The writers were really struggling to get that off the ground. And after Star Wars had such success,
we need more of this.
They said, okay, actually, it's similar to Joker and what I said about Justice League. The studio was like, oh, what's that script again that you've got, that sci-fi thing? And so after that, it flowed on. They got Ridley Scott involved. Then the budget quadrupled once Ridley Scott was on board. And then, again, Ridley Scott was so passionate about Alien that he was like, who's the best artist I can get to create the artwork that we need for this? Ridley Scott actually storyboarded himself and did a lot of the drawings himself. But he then went and found this obscure artist in Germany, I think it was. I can't remember the guy's name, but like, you know, he was an acid-taking, trip-taking artist, but he was brilliant as well. And so he created all the alien artwork, all the set artwork, and even sculpted the physical set for Alien.
But you bring up a great person to bring up, Ridley Scott. He's like he knows who to go to. Think of Blade Runner. Say what you want about Blade Runner. It again had tons of problems, but he knew who to. He was like, he did that whole, I want you to, this light. He got the guy that he wanted. Yeah. He knew was going to give him the light he wanted. He got the yes men that he wanted, and he got the people who knew what he wanted. And he took control of that whole movie. But when you watch it, the things that they gave him, the scene when he walks in and meets Rachel for the first time, the floor, the way it was, just everything, the way it looked, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the thing is when you come out of a movie, you don't want to start picking it apart, which I am sure I will pick The Rise of Skywalker apart. But when you walk out of a movie and you're like, wow, that's all you say. I mean, Joker makes you think. Let's just be honest about this. It makes you think. I'm not talking about thinking and things you think. I'm talking about, well, they could have done this, or why didn't they do that?
Yeah,
I wish
of course.
This. If you're saying that, then the movie did not do what a movie should do. Movies are meant to take you out of reality.
Yeah.
And suspend you in a place for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. And when you walk out, you want to talk about the movie and wow, that was cool. This was cool. That was cool. Da, 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 da. But you don't want to talk about all the problems it had, because when you walk out, you got bills, you got all these other problems.
Exactly.
You got politics. That's out there already. You don't need a movie to make you do that.
Yeah, exactly. Look, at a basic level, like at a very basic level, you know, I mostly I do movie reviews and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've watched, you know, thousands of movies, as we all probably have. But one of the big things for me is I want to feel something. Yeah. It doesn't have to be, I don't have to feel overwhelming joy. I don't have to feel overwhelming dread. I don't have to feel overwhelming sadness. But I want to feel something. When I come out of a film, you know, like I don't feel the same way coming out of Warrior, for example, as I come out of watching Schindler's List. It's a different emotion, but I still feel something, and it's still something that has a little bit of depth to it. So, for movies off the top of my head, like let's go with Braveheart, ends on a very emotional note, makes you feel something. Fight Club even makes you feel something. Warrior that I mentioned, The Last Samurai, makes you end on an emotional note. Now they're different emotions, but you're still left with a feeling afterwards, and it has an impact on you. If I could walk out of a cinema like I did with Terminator Dark Fate, and I'm like, not only do I feel nothing, I've wasted 2 hours of my life, then it's not a good film. Like, it's a very I guess rudimentary way to look at it, but at the end of the day, if I don't feel anything, and it could be fear as well, that's another one. You know, if you come out and you're feeling fear, well, that's another emotion that to me would say, yes, the movie has done its job. It is a good movie because it's inspired an emotion in me. I'm scared shitless now, but it's it's actually invoked an emotion.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I totally agree that I totally agree that that's needed, and movies are designed to do that if it's done right. And I think, like you said at the beginning of all this, that we've gone away from it. We used to have lush green pasture. Well, again, you do know if you walk around that pasture enough, you're going to find, you know, where the cow laid its put the pit.
Yeah.
You're going to find where the grass doesn't get enough sunlight, or where it's on the side of the hill and maybe rocky soil. You're going to find all that stuff. You know it's there. But the overall picture is fairly bright. But now it's complete opposite. It's like almost like you're, you know, digging through, you know, a sandy, rocky terrain. And if you happen upon a green patch like Joker, it's like oh my gosh, what do I do with this? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I don't get this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you got to wonder where the disconnect became. And I brought up 2016, but Ghostbusters 2016. I'm not saying that was the beginning of crap movie making, because it wasn't. It just became the definitive mark where all of a sudden, instead of like in the 80s and early 90s, and when I was growing up and when you were growing up, if a movie didn't do well, the only way to find out it wasn't doing well is your friends told you about it.
Yeah.
And when they told you, oh man, that movie's horrible, what'd you do? You go watch it?
Yeah.
No,
exactly. You don't.
What happened? The movie died. The studio said, oh crap, bad movie. Let's pick up the pieces and move along.
Let's never go there again.
2016 came along and you got Ghostbusters. And all of a sudden then it became politic agenda where you don't like it because it's females. You don't like it because of this. You don't like it that. No, I don't like it because it's not a good movie. Studios stopped listening to people.
Fans. Yeah.
And that's who makes it. Now, do we all have our crap movies we like? I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it is the worst movie in the world. Has more flaws than anything. I have plenty of movies like that. Plenty of movies that are just completely stupid. Young Frankenstein, Spaceballs. I love all of those.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
but you walk in and
yes,
you're not going to see it to be a great movie. You're going to see it because you want to laugh. You want to just have a good time. And that's what a comedy does.
Yeah.
But Ghostbusters kind of was like a skirt of that line of a little bit of drama in the original one, some scary moments, cool sci-fi mixed with comedy. And it was this nice little mesh, and it worked really well the first time. The second time, it was just a sheer horrible way of doing it. But that's it's a severe disconnect now where the studio can slam people just because they say they don't like it. With that movie and with The Last Jedi, if they had just let it go and let the movie die, nothing would have happened.
Well, what happened to being graceful? What happened to directors, filmmakers, studio owners, these people having some sort of grace? And they don't necessarily have to apologize for something being bad, but if it's bad and they see that it's not getting the results and all that kind of stuff, when they're getting interviewed, instead of saying this person's toxic, that person's a misogynist, that person's whatever, they could just say, look, we understand that not everyone's going to like every film. We did our best with this. We really tried to go this direction and please people with this film. But look, obviously it didn't do as well as we'd hoped. We'll try better next time.
Exactly.
How hard is that? That is not hard at all. And everyone will go, oh, great, cool, let's move on.
Yeah. Well, and I've said this several times on my Mandalorian roundtable thing that I do with a bunch of other guys. I have said that the thing about Mandalorian that's great is, even though I haven't seen this new episode, which people are saying is great, even though it's not the best Star Wars, we're talking like Star Wars again.
Yes.
We're all saying, well, what about this? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? Where you think this is going, it's not about agendas. It's not about politics. It's about Star Wars, and it's great. It feels warm and fuzzy.
It does. It's way better to talk about like what you liked or didn't like in an episode versus, who's right or wrong, and is it Star Wars? Is it not Star Wars? Is it, does it feel like Star Wars? All the other stuff. Yeah. It's way better to just be talking about the specific parts of the show.
Like, and what you talked about, the way things used to be. I remember back Xanadu. I don't know if you ever saw Xanadu.
No, I don't think so.
It's a guilty pleasure of mine because not Gene Autry, Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly's in it. And it was the last movie I think he may have done, or near the last movie he ever did. And when he got hired for it, he said, I'll do it as long as I don't have to dance. And it's a movie about disco, and Olivia Newton-John's in it. It's kind of like it's this really weird roller skate disco type movie. And he said, as long as I don't have to dance, I'm not dancing. I'm not going to dance at all. And they got to this part. They brought him into this ballroom area, and he says, okay, I know we told you you're not going to dance. You're going to hate us, but this is a dance scene. And he's like, really? But the funny thing about that movie is ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, did the soundtrack for that movie. That movie tanked so bad that for near 20 plus years, ELO, even though their name and people had the records with their name on it, they swore up and down, no, we did not do the music for that album, that movie. They said, no, that was not us. They used our name. That was not us. It wasn't until it came out of the ashes and became a cult classic with this group of people that Jeff Lynne came out and said, yes, I know. I said we didn't do it, but yes, that was us. Because then it was like, okay, it's cool. I can go ahead.
Yeah.
They didn't come out and bash people. They didn't. That wasn't us. That wasn't us. That wasn't us. And they knew they were blatantly lying, but they didn't bash people back then. They just kind of said, let it die, please. Let it die. We don't want to talk about that movie. Yeah,
exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, look at Dark Phoenix, for example. I can't remember the guy's name, but he did actually come out afterwards and say, yeah, look, we didn't do a great job. And do you know what? How much do we hear about that now? Nothing. Because nobody's bagging him or the movie, and nobody's bagging the fans. It's resolved.
I swear that was Disney's way of saying we're just going to kill the timeline completely so we can get the action and do what we want with it. Because when they bought Fox, that was in some bit of production, and they went through each movie that was in production and said no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, and they greenlit it. And I tell people this story all the time. I don't know how that movie ever got made, because one week, and I'm not even kidding about this, 1 week before I saw the first trailer in the theaters, I read an article that said it was dead. It was not going to be released. It was over and done. And then 1 week later, I saw a trailer and I was like, wait a minute. What? How is this? And then a month after that first trailer, here's the movie. I mean, that movie was killed like 2 or 3 times and it still came out. It's like, if that doesn't show you the severe disconnect Hollywood has with truly wanting to bring a good product to fans or to audiences. When a movie gets killed now, it isn't dead. Just wait. If we can find enough CGI to polish the turd and enough sugar to just sugar it up, powdered sugar, so you don't know that it's a turd, we can feed it to you still. We're going to do this polished, powdered sugar turd. We're going to figure out a way we can do this.
Yeah, and enough people will eat it so that we break even.
Exactly. Yeah. we may not break even in the theater, but we're going to push out DVDs, and when nobody will buy it full price, then we'll put it in the dollar bin for the next 30 years, and eventually we'll see all our money back.
Yep. It'll just keep going and going.
Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, how in the world? How did we get to this point? I mean,
well, what I don't understand as well is like, okay, studio execs and filmmakers and stuff like that, they're pretty elite. They're pretty up there. They may not lower themselves to checking out what fans are saying, on real platforms and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But don't these companies have people employed as their marketing department, as their communications, as media department, who do go onto social media, who do go onto different platforms and see what the general consensus is? Hell, just create a damn survey and send it, bulk email it to 1 million people or 10 million people or something, and just get an idea of what's going on.
I don't know how it works over in Australia. And you're in Australia, right? Not New Zealand.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so I don't know how it works over there, but like I go out to Vegas quite a bit, and I do DJing and work out there and other stuff like that. But it's several places in Vegas. They have these little places where they'll pull you in and they'll let you watch like a half-hour sitcom that might get aired, and then they'll ask you a set of questions. I've been a part of several of those. I've had them mailed to my house. I don't know why I'm on this list. Maybe for whatever reason, I just am. And more often than not, I'll say, well, it's okay. I like this character. I don't like this character. And, I would change this and make it this. And then 7, 8 months, a year later, I'll see the sitcom come out for a first season. And it's the exact same thing I watched when I said,
Yeah.
this isn't what you guys should be doing. And I'm like, they just don't listen.
Yeah. Well,
you mentioned social media marketing, and you mentioned the people that are there to tell them, no, don't do this. I think they're just scared to death to say no. I think they're like, oh, well, I'm waiting for the guy that's in one of these studios to just stand up and says, you know what, guys, make this movie. I'm telling you right now, it ain't gonna go.
Yeah.
So you want money, do it, but it's not gonna make it.
I agree, and that's why I was even more happy with Todd Phillips with Joker, because he got all that backlash and came out and said, you know what, I don't care. I'm making this film because it's a good film. I'm passionate about it. It's a great film. He backed it 100% and didn't cave to any of that rubbish and just said you could all get stuffed, basically. Now, he's not sort of what we're talking about as executive level or that kind of thing, but it's got to start somewhere, because too often we see filmmakers and actors and everybody else just backpedaling and saying and apologizing. Oh, I'm sorry I made this comment. I'm sorry I made that comment. I'm sorry about this film that it offended you, whatever. Don't say that. Just make something good.
The other thing, the other problem you have right now in Hollywood is just the sheer politics. Because back in the day, way back when Hollywood first started, an actor didn't talk out about a movie, didn't talk bad about the audience, because they were under a contract. That contract was with that studio, and if you said something wrong, you could lose your life. They knew it. And they don't do that anymore. So, let's go politics of Hollywood. When the Joker first was released, we heard, oh, there could be riots. They're bringing extra police in to these theaters. Nothing happened. Nothing that I heard of.
No.
Then several months later, now we got Frozen 2. And did you hear about the riots?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
It's like, what the heck? you talk about the Joker. We're talking about the Disney film did this.
And Frozen, of all things.
Exactly. It's like politics, people. What in the world makes you think that we know what's going on, and just don't always buy into what Hollywood tells you. And maybe we're seeing a change with the Rise of Skywalker. Maybe if this tanks totally and we get rid of Kathleen Kennedy, who instead of just saying, no, the Force is everything, she said the Force is female.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we started to get a bit of a shift with Joker. I feel like a shift has sort of started with that. And then there's another one that I feel like that has shifted things a little bit. It just escapes me right now. But Joker shifted the conversation a little bit. I think moving forward, we're going to see some more of that, and I certainly hope we see some more of that. But two things that I think are really important, and that is the media are completely disingenuous with everything that they do. And so when they talk about this potential violence for Joker, they were the ones who actually created that whole scenario. If they never mentioned it, there would have been no talk about it whatsoever, and no one would have even thought of it. But they're the ones actually putting that into people's heads who may potentially go and commit crime. My personal view is that movies don't cause any of that, and that anyone who's going to commit a crime has a predisposition to do it anyway. Exactly. The film's not going to influence a thing. And secondly,
the film is just a set piece.
Exactly.
People get more attention.
Yeah. And the second thing is, I actually think that, maybe not me and you, but the public at large are a big problem, because the public at large will still go and see some of these terrible movies and still call them good, unfortunately. And I think a lot of that, is the era that we're in now. So we're nearly 20 years past 2000. So for people like us who grew up in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, had that awesome experience with films, that green pasture where everything was essentially pretty good among, with a few turds among it. But now what I think that we're seeing is that people who were born in the 90s, early 2000s, haven't had that experience, that same experience as us. And so they're used to seeing films of this kind of generic, politically driven nature. And so they're accepting of it. And when it comes out, they don't see anything, Wrong with it? Okay, go see it. Yep, had a few laughs or whatever. Wasn't that good. And so now I'm going to say it was good. But they're not really getting that experience that we got with films, every other week back in the 90s and early 2000s. So it may not be their fault that they're liking this rubbish, but all the same, they're liking it and it's perpetuating it. So, a good example of that's The Lion King. Lion King 2019 was a piece of garbage, absolute garbage. And it made over $1 billion. Fantastic. So that then says, cool, we're going to make more money off more reboots. Let's do that again. We need these films to fail at the box office. Yeah. And we need, that's the clearest message. And that's why I love Joker so much, is because right around the same time, Joker was reaching $1 billion and Terminator Dark Fate was losing $100 million. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's a great message to Hollywood. Joker, $65 million budget or $60 million budget, made over $1 billion. Dark Fate, $185 million budget. It's going to lose $100 million.
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right. That needs to happen more often. I haven't seen the Lion King reboot yet, but I saw the Aladdin reboot, but I did not watch it at the theater. And actually, I watched it off the streaming service, and my son bought it, so I didn't really pay money for it. So, but whatever. That's kind of how you got to do it. Is you got to, I'm not one of these people. I think I thought about going and seeing like Good Boys in the theater, and then I didn't do it.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine bought the DVD when it came out, and I was like, "Hey, can I borrow that?" And I watched it, and I'm like, oh, "Okay, yeah, great." But I didn't go to see it, and that's the thing. Be discernful, discern what you really want from your movie, and then go see the ones you really want to go see. And if you're kind of like, wait and find another way.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
in Hollywood, okay, you're actually giving Hollywood better feedback if you don't.
Yeah, definitely.
Even if it isn't a bad movie, you can still watch it at a later date. But when you go to the theater and you give a movie money and it maybe makes money just because people went, well, that's Hollywood the wrong idea.
Well, you look at $2 billion movies, right? Let's talk Lion King and Joker. So, first thing is Lion King. You get to capture the complete child audience. There's no restriction to the audience. Joker, R-rated. There goes a massive chunk of the potential audience.
And no
Lion King,
released
in China, massive bonus to the budget. Joker, no release in China.
No.
So you compare those two films, and where I believe a lot of Joker's box office success came from was repeat viewings. People paid multiple times to go to the cinema to see it again and again. I'm one of them. I think I paid 3 times to go and see it. And when I hand over that cash, what I see that is I'm supporting that type of creative filmmaking that I want to see again.
Yep.
When I go and see something like The Lion King, it's because I've got kids and I have to go and take them to see it. And it really pains me to hand over that cash. So I find a discount coupon wherever I can. But two very different things.
Like you said, though, Lion King is an unrestricted access to unwilling viewers, too, because it's directed at kids. And if you have 4 kids and 2 parents, well, typically 4 kids aren't going to go with one parent. Both parents are going to be like, okay, let's make this trip we don't want to make. Let's go take the kids. Let's go watch this movie. Well, you got 2 tickets right there. The Joker's not getting.
Yep.
Sure. Because, 4, if you count it that way, because 4 kids aren't going to go.
Yep.
So you bring up a really good point that you look at the facts of what's really going on here. The $1 billion that Joker had over however many millions of people that are in China, none of them got to see it.
No.
That is an amazing fact right there, because I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think of the few billion-dollar movies we have of current money, not gross adjusted.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of those movies weren't released there. I think the only one I can name is Joker. I'm not sure that any other movie hasn't been.
Look, I think all of them were released there. Like all the other ones were released there, if at least most of them. And I think, you can argue about the benefit of China, but when you look at the numbers that China adds, it's somewhere between 100 and 300 million.
Yeah.
So 300, if we're talking up that higher level, 300 million is nothing to sneer at. Like, that's a huge number when you're looking at overall box office, considering some films don't even make 300 million at the box office. So, it's nothing to sneer at. And it's, to me, like, it gets forgotten about. Or, I've seen people even in my comment section and stuff, like on my Lion King video and whatever else, saying, but it made $1 billion. It made $1 billion. It's a success. It beat the original. Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything to me. Like, yes, I talk about being happy that Joker made $1 billion, but to me, that doesn't mark its success. It's just another part of the story that says, yes, this was another part that made it successful.
I think the way you could explain it is when I say Joker made $1 billion, I'm not using it as a success just because of that. It's a success because, one, it did that, but because it didn't have this, and this with it.
Yeah.
Lion King made $1 billion because it had this, and this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a marker there. You're saying, I'm only saying it made $1 billion. Oh my God, how did it do it? Not it made $1 billion. Well, of course it did.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And in a day and age where obviously, film studios are businesses, they want to make money. So when you've got a variable of $60 million budget versus making over $1 billion, that's a lot of profit. Mm-hmm. And so you look at something like Dark Fate, or even Lion King that made over $1 billion, still probably cost them a lot more to make. I'm not going to quote the number because I can't remember, but probably over $100 million to make. So you start to lose that profit margin. So that's really what it's all about. And if we can get more movies like Joker to be profitable, then that's going to turn things around in Hollywood. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's Disney, doesn't matter if it's the wokest company in the world, they want the cash. And at the end of the day, if all their woke stuff isn't making them any money, they will stop doing it.
If they go broke, they won't be woke.
Exactly.
Flip it around.
I saw that. I see what you did there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, let's get your final thoughts on this. Let's go with this. Final thoughts on how, and you've kind of touched upon it, how can we get back to good movie making? Okay.
So how we can get back to it, in my opinion, is first of all, giving creative license to filmmakers. So that being writers and directors and everyone else involved. They're restricted by their creativity at the moment because studios, and Chris Stuckman said this in one of his videos, he gave out some scripts and his feedback was they told him, you need to make it more political. You need to make it more social agenda stuff. So get rid of that. Let's have some more creative license for filmmakers and writers. Let's just focus on creating a fantastic story with relatable characters. Get rid of the political agenda and, have some passion. Come on, have some passion for what you're doing, people. We talked about Ridley Scott. We talked about Todd Phillips, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, all people with passion about the films that they're creating. Not just creating a film for film's sake and just for making it happen and a little bit of extra cash. You'll find if you put passion into your film and real effort, the money will come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's it. That's all I've got.
No, perfect, though. That was great. All right. Now, we will let you give out everything about you and where they can find you and all that here in just a second, but we are going to go and do the Wheel of Names. Now, this is going to be for Friday, guys, because tomorrow night I am going to see The Rise of Skywalker. So I will not be doing the Gospel According to Chris tomorrow night. I will be on maybe 1 or 2 live streams, and I might jump on for a few minutes live and give you my honest to God opinion of what I think about this apparent train wreck that we're seeing. I don't know. We'll see. When John Campea comes out and says he didn't like it, what is that?
It's got to be bad.
Yeah, I mean, really. That's about the only when he says I don't like it, and it's Star Wars, you're like, okay, I guess he's telling the truth because So, but this is how we pick our next guest, and this is how we're going to do it today. We're going to spin this, and it goes round and round and round and round and round, and does all that fun stuff, and we will see who it picks this time. And remember, this is all dependent on who it is, their schedule, all of that stuff. And it is Tariel. We're going to go talk to her. We're going to make sure she can do it. And we'll get a topic together, and we'll be back on Friday. That's it. Friday the 20th. Because I won't
Nice.
see Rise of Skywalker that night. So, but Stevie, I want you to go ahead and tell everybody where they can find. Oh, let me put you back in. I hit the wrong button. Oh my God.
Magic trick.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, what you're about, all that fun stuff. If you got anything you got coming out here soon, tell them about it.
All right, cool. Well, look, Stevie J Reviews is the channel name. You can find me at that on YouTube and on Twitter. I'm doing mostly movie reviews and movie news, so updates on stuff. You know, I tend to give my comments whether they're popular opinion or not. I don't really care. To me, at the end of the day, I just want to be honest and give you my honest thoughts on it. And look, coming up, I've got a couple of things coming up. So tomorrow morning, my time, and sort of later morning, your time, I guess, I've got a video coming out about Rey's backstory and how it could have been fixed or how it could have been written better. So I'm pretty pumped about that one. Put a little bit of effort into it. So that will be coming out probably somewhere around 1 a.m. your time tomorrow. No, 1 a.m. Sorry, 10 a.m. And then the next one I've got is something we talked about today, which will be in a few days' time probably, about strong female protagonists and how they should be written properly and have already been written properly in the past. So that's what I got coming up. And thanks for coming. Thanks for having me on, Chris. It's been really good chat. Really enjoyed it, mate.
We've talked, a lot of, like we mentioned it beforehand, a lot of people have been on this wheel for a long time. You have been on there since, I think, the beginning, because I think you were one of the first people that when I put that thing out, hey, guys, is anybody interested in doing this stream? I'm going to call it the Gospel According to Chris. You're like, yeah, put me on. And I said, okay, I'm going to put you on this wheel. I didn't realize the monster this wheel of names would become, because you saw it. It's still like 20 names or so on it. And I think I'm done putting people on it for a while. But I really am glad that we got this time. I love the videos you do. I think I said it, the way you look at things, it's a fresh perspective. And like you said, you have the same thought process I do about it. This is my opinion. You don't have to like it. Don't hate me for my opinion. Just understand that I'm honest about it. I'm going to tell you what I think. And if you don't like it, fine. But I have a right to that opinion. Yeah, absolutely. So with that said, guys, you know what? Go check out Stevie J. If you haven't subscribed to him, do so. Make sure you do that. And, that's what we got here, guys. Thank you for watching The Gospel According to Chris. I am Chris Knight. This has been The Real Review 3000. And, guys, have a great day.
Hey, guys. Thanks for checking us out. Be sure to subscribe to both channels. And make sure to check out our friends in the Fandom Minutes. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and BitChute. And you can also send us an email at sean@seanstackhousereacts.com and Chris Knight at therealreview3000.com. And be sure to swing by our Teespring store to pick up some awesome merchandise.